Hello everybody, this is Louis from LoukProp, and if you have watched our last episode on second property purchase and the cost involved, you will know that the costs are huge, right, if you don't plan to sell your current property. However, there's a way to significantly lower these costs through a process called decoupling. But decoupling is not for everyone, there's a lot of factors involved, so today we'll be talking about the factors and steps involved. This is the full guide to decoupling. So what is decoupling, right? This process of decoupling happens when a property with two owners, one of the owners decide to transfer or sell their part of the shares to the other party so that they can free up their name, right? Why would they want to do so? Because this party might want to purchase a second property but doesn't want to incur ABSD. So decoupling allows them to free up that name for that purchase. But do take note, as of a few years ago, HDB properties can't be decoupled anymore, and it's only possible for private property owners. So first thing you have to check, how long have you owned the property for, right? If you have owned the property for less than 3 years, there's a high chance that you might incur seller stamp duty on the value of the share of property being sold, which might be pretty high. Okay. Also, depending on how long your lock-in period is for your current loan, you might need to pay early loan redemption penalty. So you have to check with your banker on this, and this applies to refinanced loan as well. Second thing you have to check, what is the manner of holding for your property? Is it a joint tenancy, which is a 50% holding, or is it a 90-10 holding, 99-1 holding? That will determine what is the cost of you doing this decoupling. Thirdly, the valuation of your property. Fourthly, what is the individual loan eligibility of both parties? Because essentially what one party is doing is they are taking up a higher amount of loan. So we have to make sure that they are able to take up the entire loan. Fifth, how much CPF was used for the property and the accrued interest. Sixth, what is the outstanding loan amount on the property? And seven, what is the citizenship status of the parties involved? So with that out of the way, now let's go straight into how decoupling is done and how it's being calculated. Now we'll be using a case study for this. The information is here. So you can pause the video here to take down the information of this case study. Okay. So decoupling basically involves two processes, the buying and the selling of the share. So let's say, for example, right now we are assuming that the husband is buying over the wife's share so that they can free up the wife's name for a second property purchase. Now, since the value of the property is at 1.5 million, the husband will essentially be buying over 750K worth of shares. And if he decides to take up 75% loan on the purchase, the calculations will look like this. Now for the buying portion, so the first 25% would have to be paid upfront in cash and CPF with at least 5% cash payment, right? They will also have to pay buyer stamp duty on that share. You can look at this buyer stamp duty chart. All right, so this is the amount of buyer stamp duty that they have to pay. Now do take note, if the husband already has another property on top of the current one that he owns, he would have to pay ABSD as well. So this means that the total amount that he has to pay before loan would amount to $204,600. Since the husband has 80K in his current CPF OA account, the remaining $124,600 would need to be paid in cash. Now do take note on this as well. You must have this amount of cash on hand first because the buying portion is actually executed first before the selling portion. Now, many people believe that because the selling portion has cash proceeds, right? They think that they can use that to cover the cash needed for the buying portion, but this is not possible because the buying portion is always executed first before the selling portion. So you have to make sure that you have this cash on hand. Now, as for the new loan that he'll be taking up, on top of the existing loan of $375,000, the total will be $937,500, right? So the next thing that you have to check is that he's eligible to take up this amount of loan based on his TDSR eligibility. Now, we all know from just now the information that we have given that his IPA is already approved at 950K, so he definitely is able to take up this amount of loan. Another thing that you have to take note is that if your current loan has a lock-in period, you might have to incur early redemption penalties. So do check with your bank on this also. Now that's it for the buying portion. Let's move on to the selling portion, which is from the wife side. Now after selling a 750K value, minusing off the outstanding loan, which is 50% of the current outstanding loan, and minusing off the CPF used plus accrued interest, all right, they will end up with 225K cash proceeds. Now the next note is this. If you have bought the property less than 3 years prior, then likely you have to pay seller stamp duty, and it is based on this chart. Okay. On top of all this, they also have to incur legal fees. Now because there's 2 different processes, you have to engage 2 different lawyers to represent the buying portion and the selling portion, which means that legal fees might go up to around $6,000, $6,000. So at the end of the decoupling exercise, with the $225K they will get back from the selling portion, the $125K they will be paying for the buying portion, and also the legal fees, you will end up with this amount of cash on hand, which they can use for the next property purchase as well. So if we were to really assess the cost of decoupling, it will come down to the buyer stamp duty payable plus the legal fees payable. And in this case study, we are looking at a total of $23,100 in total cost of decoupling, which is actually a lot lesser than they would incur on ABSD for their next purchase. Imagine a $1 million property, ABSD is already $170K, right? Now, having gone through all those calculations, there's one thing that people are already doing nowadays. They are buying property based on a 99-1 configuration, basically meaning that one party holds 99% of shares and one party holds 1% of shares. Why would they want to do it? Is to prep for decoupling in the future, because the buyer's stamp duty cost on selling of that 1% is extremely low, it's negligible, right? But there are pitfalls that you must absolutely take note of if you want to do this arrangement, right? So let's take, for example, the previous example that we were talking about. Yep. Now for this previous case, with the information that we have, let's change it up a bit and assume that the husband owns 99% and the wife owns 1%. How would the calculation look like for this decoupling case? For the buying portion, the 1% share on a $1.5 million property is just $15,000. So he would not even need to take a loan out of this. He can just pay the full $15,000 with cash. The buyer stamp duty is only $150 for this case, which, like I said earlier on, is negligible, and he can definitely pay off with cash as well. So the only cost for this decoupling is really only $6,150 if you include the legal cost, which is a lot cheaper than the earlier example that we talked about. However, now let's look at the selling portion from the wife's side. Now if you take the selling price of $15,000 minus the outstanding loan of $7,500 on a 1% share, and you minus the $150,000 CPF used plus accrued interest, you will end up with negative $142,000 on the wife's side. This means that not only do you not have cash on hand, to do this decoupling, you have to fork out another $140,000 in cash to pay back into the wife's CPF OA account. For most of you who want to do this without incurring too much cash, this might be a problem for you. So my advice is that either you take up a 90-10 kind of arrangement, 80-20 kind of arrangement, or if you really want to do 99-1, the person that's holding the 1% share shouldn't be using any CPF or very little CPF if you can, so that you don't have to return so much into your CPF OA account in the future when you decouple. Okay, now of course, every case is unique and every calculation differs on a case-by-case basis. So if you do want a detailed calculation for yourself, right, drop us a DM, give us a call, and we'll do up a customized calculation for you to see if decoupling is suitable for you and your property. So if you like the content today, please go and like the video, share the video, and subscribe to the channel. It will help us a lot. What other content do you want us to cover? Leave it down in the comment section below. This is Louis from LoukProp, and I'll see you in the next Real Talk. By the way, my videographer passed me a present today. My birthday was in May, so this is 1 month due. We're gonna open it, take a look at it. This better be good. What is it?